Good evening from Kampala, and you are welcome to Strictly Business. This is your business analysis show, launching today with a post-budget discussion, exploring the opportunities for you and I in the budget that has just been read. I am your hostess, Belinda Namutebi, and we are at the CNA rooftop in Zambia with a magnificent view of Kampala City. It is also Father's Day today, and we want to take a moment to celebrate and honor our fathers. We thank you for everything that you do to support our children. It is 15 minutes after 8 o'clock, and we are here until 9:15. We invite you to follow us on our social media handles, and let's join into this discussion. Karibu. Very good evening once again. This is Strictly Business, and I would like to take an opportunity to introduce my guests today. And you will notice that they are dressed to honor Father's Day today. We have a men's club. Don't ask me where the women are. I am right here. And on my left is Denis Kakembo, who is a taxation and a chartered accountant. And on my right is Andrew Muhimbisa, who is a stock retail investor. I hope I got that right. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. Good evening.
And a happy Father's Day to you.
Thank you.
Okay, I will not ask you if you're fathers, because for someone to be a father, they don't have to have biological children. We father people in quite a number of different ways. So you're welcome to this discussion. We are exploring the opportunities for you and I in the budget that has just been read. When we were preparing for this discussion, I remember two scenarios. The first one was when I was still in school and we had to write our shopping lists. Did you do that in school?
The wish list.
The wish list. And the wish list always came back with 40% funding, and you had to find your way out. I don't know how we managed through that. Or maybe to bring it home, in my own experience, when we worked at the agency, we used to build campaigns and come up with huge budgets. Once we presented them to the client only gave us 50% funding for our campaign. So we had to sit like we are going to sit tonight and find out how we could work with that budget. Ladies and gentlemen, the budget was read a couple of days ago. Some people have given their views about the budget, but on the show tonight, we are going to discuss how we are going to make it through 2023, 2024 by exploring the opportunities that are available. Okay? So, Andrew, what opportunities do you see in this budget?
Thank you, Belinda, and happy Father's Day. Well, the first I'll speak from my side as an investor in financial instruments. First of all, we have a budget deficit, meaning government will be borrowing. So there will be an opportunity to invest in treasury bills and bonds at attractive rates. Right now the rates have gone to 15.5, but we think because it's a deficit, they will have to borrow. Then the other benefit I saw was government has budgeted to pay 200 billion in domestic arrears.
Okay.
That is for its suppliers of goods and services. So that's a good one. If you demand government, you can look at that. Then also, for those who borrow from SACCOs, it is now tax allowable, the interest you pay.
Can you explain that? Yes.
Yeah, previously it was only exclusive to commercial banks. When you run a business and you borrow from a bank, your interest expense is allowed off tax.
Okay.
But for SACCOs, it wasn't.
Okay.
And the microfinance. So now it is. So that's another good opportunity. Then they have removed VAT off supply of concentrates.
What does that mean?
I believe concentrates are the juices they use in soda and juice. And
Okay,
other
so
things.
those are the soft drinks, those are the bottled drinks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they have removed the VAT tax on that. And seed cake, I believe seed cake is to do with fertilizers.
And for animals, I think,
Yeah.
right? Yes. Animal husbandry. Okay.
Yeah. Then another is non-resident taxpayers can now file returns, not physically.
Can you give us an example?
If you're buying stuff and you're abroad, you can file your returns now online, and you can pay in USD, in United States dollars. So you
Okay.
don't have to be physically here.
Okay.
So that is also another benefit. Then the one I saw that is really interesting is they have removed tax off Tanzanian calls.
Okay. Why would that be?
Previously, I believe they were matching country taxes, and we know Tanzania was a bit closed even within the East African community.
Yes.
So now it's open. So you would call Vodafone Tanzania and you get a different rate. It would be an international call.
Okay.
Safaricom would be similar. So now they have removed that. It means we shall be able to do more business with Tanzania.
Does that mean we call Tanzania using local rates?
Yeah.
Okay.
It will be one network now.
Okay.
And also regarding the bonds, they plan to allow trading bonds using mobile money,
Okay.
to increase, their base. Maybe they look at reducing. Also, they have talked of infrastructure bonds, the Sukuk bonds. Those are to do with Islamic banking, and Kakembo will probably enlighten us more on those. They have allocated money to the Uganda Development Bank, and
Okay.
the Nyogas, and we also see they're allocating 100 million to each parish. There
For
are
the parish
10,500
development model. Yes.
parishes.
Okay.
So as seed capital,
Yes.
So for those looking to benefit, there is that. Then there is a waiver on interest and penalty on outstanding taxes.
Okay. I saw that with
From
URA.
30th to, it's a 6-month window.
Okay.
But you have to pay it fully to benefit of that.
Okay.
Yeah. They have promised to work to reduce the government debt. We have a debt stock of 80 trillion, which is around 48% of the GDP. So the government has promised to reduce that. That, if that happens, it will help the private sector credit, because banks largely participate in government debt. And the rates, when the government debt rates are high, they tend to issue less credit to the private sector.
Okay.
Yeah, so with the promise to reduce, that should ease the cost of borrowing for the private sector. In the budget, they talked of the literacy levels going to 76%, meaning 76% of the population is educated,
Okay.
which is a good thing. Foreign direct investment was $1.5 billion up to April 2023. So that's another good thing. Uganda Investment Authority bought 12 square kilometers of land. They want to build industrial parks,
On top of Namambe.
Yeah, they want
Okay.
to do regional ones.
Okay.
And usually in the industrial parks, you have less tax. There are several incentives.
Yes. Industrial parks.
Then in terms of judiciary, they plan to reduce the case backlog by 6,000 cases. Out of the 50,000 backlog, and we can see they have put money to build some specialized courts again up country.
Okay, how does that, can you explain how that impacts, okay, I understand what you're trying to say, but
Yeah.
by solving all those cases, that means some of them are business cases, I can imagine.
Yeah.
But can you explain a little bit more how that is going to benefit you and me, the case backlog?
Yeah, when you reduce the case backlog, then you don't have things clogged,
Okay.
in the system. So if people have reported, if people have cases ongoing and they are opened up, it means they can go and do other stuff. This could be commercial disputes,
Okay.
and money is released. So So that's how it helps.
Yes, and
It
also,
gives confidence to invest in.
yes, also
Yeah.
our lawyers get paid.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and lastly, they've said that there is where they have reduced investment capital for excise duty exemption from $50 million. So if on construction material, so if you're doing some construction works and you're importing stuff worth 50 million, previously it was 50 million. Now for foreigners it's $35 million, and for locals, nationals, it is $5 million. So if you have a project that needs material of $5 million, it won't have any tax.
Wow.
It has come down from.
I like hearing the word no tax.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Is there anything else?
No, for now that is it.
Okay, thank you so much, Andrew. We'll get back to Andrew to explain to us what exactly it means for there not to be a tax on a commodity, or how we can all benefit from the provisions that have been provided for us in this budget. You are tuned into Strictly Business, and we are live on YouTube and Twitter Spaces. My name is Belinda Namutebi. We are exploring the opportunities in the budget that has just been passed. We just heard from Andrew, who is a stock market and retail investor, and now we'll speak to Denis. Denis is a lawyer, and he's also a chartered accountant. I don't know how you were able to qualify for that too, Denis, but that is quite a good combination of skills. Denis, can you please share with us what opportunities you've been able to identify in the budget that has just been passed?
Thank you so much, Belinda, for hosting us today. I'll be a lawyer, and lawyers, we usually start with preambles. Very rarely do we directly attack the issues. We have our preambles and introductions of sorts.
Yes.
So, I mean, when I look at the budget we have as Uganda, we are walking in the footsteps of our neighbors. Our aspirations as regional players seem to be the same. We all aspire for growth, but we also have unique challenges that we are dealing with. And before I go into a deep dive of what Uganda has really come up with, I wanted to cite some interesting comparative statistics that will help our viewers see how Uganda compares in relation to its peers in the region. Now, in terms of budget expenditure, when you look at Kenya, what Kenya projects to spend this year, it's I think about 24 billion dollars. When you look at what Uganda projects to spend, it's about $13.9 billion. When you look at what Tanzania projects to spend, it's about $19 billion. When you look at what Rwanda projects to spend, I think it's about $4.4 billion. When you look at Burundi, it's about $1.3 billion. And then South Sudan is about 1.3. And then when you look at DRC, it's about $19 billion. So what you see through this is that Kenya still remains the biggest economy in East Africa. And I think what I note, there has been some improvement in terms of how Uganda is performing. About 5 years ago, Kenya would almost expenditure-wise spend 2.5 of our projected expenditure. But this time round, we are narrowing the gap. I mean, Kenya is spending about 24, Uganda is about $13.9 billion, which is
Almost.
much better in terms of performance and improvement. Now, when you look at the projections of growth, what I find exciting is that Uganda, the prospects seem to be brighter for Uganda. I mean, Kenya projects to grow at around 5.5%. Tanzania, I think about 5%, and then Uganda about 6% per annum. So which would mean that if at all those statistics work out as they are, we should be able to post the bigger growth. And if an economy posts bigger growth, that means that there's more business for you as a country. But then in terms of taxes, and I will compare this with Kenya, which I know because East African countries tend to copy one another. When another country adopts measures that stimulate tax growth, even other countries tend to borrow the same. And what we are seeing in Kenya presently, yesterday the finance bill that is introducing new taxes in Kenya was passed, and the tax regime in Kenya is quite punitive. When you look at some of the changes that have been proposed, they are mind-boggling, and that reminds me about 3 months ago when the debate on the tax bills in Uganda was starting. Some of the tax proposals which were in the initial bills were quite punitive. Fortunately, government listened and heard to the voices of the people and the business community, and a lot of that was taken out, which Kenya has not done. But of course, what you will see in Kenya is that Kenya's tax revenue collections are almost 2.7 times what Uganda collects. We project to collect about 29 trillion and then 27, and then the non-tax revenue of about 2 billion. Now Kenya is collecting about 79 trillion, which is almost 3 times. And what is also interesting is that when you look at in terms of budget funding, because of the bigger tax revenue collections, Kenya funds almost 71% of its of its budget with domestically raised revenues via taxes, while Uganda is only at about 56%. So what I forecast is, because Uganda, we aspire to keep narrowing the gap. I suspect that some of the tax changes we've seen in Kenya this year, it's just a question of time. We'll also see them coming. And notable among those is introduction of VAT on fuel. Kenya led the way to introduce VAT on fuel, introducing initially a rate of 8%, but now they have increased it to 16%. So if Uganda also takes a path, you know, presently we do not pay VAT on fuel. If Uganda copies that, and we have VAT on fuel, that means the cost of doing business is likely to become much higher. So I think I wanted to first give that preamble for us to appreciate where we stand as a country. Sometimes when you look at things from the lenses of only your local circumstances, you could say that things are very bad here, but yet when you take a comparative view of how things are performing elsewhere, you can appreciate how well you're doing or how far back you are, and then work towards improving and becoming better. Yes. Okay.
So thank you, Denis. From what you have just shared with us, it looks like most of the countries in the region, or the economies in the region, are going to have to struggle to thrive through their economies because, and I don't want to bring back the COVID-19 recovery story right now, but I know we are all going to come up with new ways of how to raise domestic revenue, and then how to get by. How are we going to take our children to school? How are we going to pay our healthcare bills? How are we going to look after our old citizens? How are we going to build our infrastructure? Okay, so I see URA is proposing to collect 29.7 billion Uganda shillings. Trillion, sorry, 29.7 trillion Uganda shillings. That is how much we are funding our domestic budget, right? Is that sufficient to cover the needs that we have to attend to this year? Andrew.
So the 29 trillion is projected revenue?
Yes.
So they'll have to borrow and also get from donors. The expense budget is 52
yes.
trillion.
So that deficit is what I'm struggling with. With all the things we have to do this year, we have to run the economy, we have to build our infrastructure. Our donor dynamics has been a bit shaken this year. So do we really need to look to donors and other people to fund a budget to run this country, or we need to look for other ways to survive? It's the big question now.
No, probably we shall borrow. We shall borrow from the domestic market externally, and yeah, that's how you fill the gap.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's quite a big gap to fill.
Yeah.
So before we came on air, I was having a chat with Andrew, and I reminded him of a notice I read from Bank of Uganda about 2 months ago where they couldn't pay out some bonds and they were extended to a later date. And according to me, in my small mind, I thought that government was broke. Okay? I thought if government can't pay its bills, then why should we buy treasury bonds? Now you seem to be proposing that for us to get through 2023, 2024, the government has to borrow again. Where will that money come from?
Well, the very last option for government is to print money, to pay. That's why you say bonds are safe and fixed income, but we know that their biggest threat is inflation.
Okay.
Yeah, once they keep inflation well, that's okay. And Uganda as a nation, we have the advantage of producing food.
Okay, yes.
Because that is the main inflation, headline inflation.
Okay.
Yeah. So they will generate income because we saw their tourism income went up 1 trillion. 60% of service revenue was from tourism.
Okay.
Of course, it's threatened by the recent bill. Yeah, but reading this President's State of Nation address, he allayed some of the fears in the bill to the outside world. Yeah. So, when government says they postpone, they were offering not bad rates.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was simply, it's like someone extending their credit time. Yeah?
Okay, and giving you better rates.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. So, Denis, let's talk about the legislation. From a legal point of view, I do not want to be in trouble with URA this year. On top of looking for money to pay my rent, to take my kids to school, and to look after my people, I want to be in URA's good books. Speak to the business person who is listening right now and share with them 3 things they need to do to make sure that they are in URA's good books.
Starting from this budget, and Andrew already alluded to it, there's what we call a voluntary tax amnesty,
Okay.
which has come up in the Tax Procedure Code Act. So if you know you have skeletons in your closets and you think URA cannot find out, I would urge you to come clean before they come for you, because tax compliance is now so much technologically enabled, integrated, a lot of business integrations that whatever transactions you run, when you do an analytical procedures using technology, you're able to work backwards to understand what someone has got. So under the tax amnesty, if between 1st of July up to 31st of December 2023, you disclose areas where you've not been compliant for tax purposes and you pay the principal tax, you're going to be forgiven on your interest and penalty. Many times in my practice as a tax lawyer, you actually go to a client and you identify areas of non-compliance, and this non-compliance may not even be deliberate, but it could be inadvertent. They didn't intend not to disclose. And an issue that usually comes up is that, but if we go and come clean on this month, URA is going to come back and dig back for the previous months, and they're going to impose significant interest and penalties, which many times, if URA slaps the penalties and interest, it's much more. It could be double what you're going to pay as principal tax. So what the government has done this time round is encouraging taxpayers to come forward and disclose their tax liabilities so that they are forgiven their interest and penalties. And I would urge viewers who are watching in the business community to follow through with this. I remember when I was starting my career in the tax world in 2007, there was a similar scheme which government did, and government was able to raise revenues, but then also it was able to clear a significant chunk of unpaid tax liabilities, which in any case, even if government had chosen to audit, they wouldn't have been able to find that out because they don't have sufficient manpower. So it's a win-win for both government and the taxpayers. Perhaps an area where we need to keep urging government to consider is the tax rates in Uganda, especially income tax rates, are high, are very high. In the region, Uganda has the highest pay as you earn for employees or even employers, because at the end of the day, when you're an employer, an employee looks at what it takes home. So if a lot of what is taken home is eaten away by the pay as you earn, which can rise up to 40%, he will demand for more. And when he demands for more, that means you're increasing the cost of doing business. So the tax rates pay as you earn is really high at the rate of 40%. And we've been urging government to consider to reduce that rate to optimal levels so that individuals can have sufficient disposable income. If I have money in my hands, it means I'm going to buy beer, it means I'm going to buy
airtime.
Airtime. It stimulates production, and when production is stimulated, the private sector makes good decisions in terms of investment. Government is not very efficient and effective in spending. So I have challenges with government collecting my money, taking it in the consolidated fund where there's a bit of leakage. But if I have this money, I come spend it, UBL or anyone else, when they are making, as a private sector, when you're making investment decisions, it's about making money. You don't make wrong decisions. So government needs to look and consider that. Then probably, as I had earlier hinted, government had come up with punitive measures in terms of collecting more revenues. If you recall, government had slapped a tax on unit trusts. Because unit trusts, for the past 5 years, they've attracted a lot of investment, and that investment is increasing savings, because as a country, you need to increase savings. If you don't increase savings, you're going the wrong way. But fortunately, government listened to the voices of the business community, and that was taken away. So I would urge every one of us, I think in terms of tax planning, our law is not complex like it is with the UK or US. There's very little avenue for tax planning. There are very few investments here where you can invest and you do not pay taxes. And unit trusts is one of those things that people can look at and invest in. And then, of course, as a business community, you have to continue engaging in your routine business compliance obligations. If you're VAT registered, make sure that every month you pay your VAT. If you have customers that are coming to you, make sure you the invoices you pay out in accordance with the law. Now there's what you call IFRS invoices, or when you go to supermarkets are supposed to give you system generated receipts, which if they don't give you, they're going to find themselves in trouble. But even you as a customer, if you do not get this receipt, you're not going to be able to have booked some of those expenses that URA might disallow. And when they are disallowed, that means you're going to pay a little more taxes. So I think in summary, the tax changes which have come through this year are very neutral. This year, the tax changes which have come through are not anything to speak about compared to what Kenya has done. So that is why a lot of what I'm speaking to is the status quo as it has been. I'm encouraging you to invest in unit trust because it's a tax-free investment, because that has been the case before, and it still remains as the case is now.
Okay, thank you so much, Denis. Well, you are listening to Strictly Business, and we are at the CNA rooftop in Zambia, enjoying the magnificent view of Kampala City. You can follow us on our social media handles. We are on YouTube, that is Strictly Business. I'm sure you're watching us right now. We are also on Twitter Spaces, that is Business UG, and we are also on LinkedIn as Strictly Business. We'll be taking your questions in a while, so please do, you can type them where you're watching us from. But I would now like to I would like us to talk about the small businesses in Uganda. So many people doing business on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. So I understand there's been a 5% tax. Is it a 5% tax?
Yes, there was a proposed digital services tax
Yes,
of 5%.
I think it was passed.
No, fortunately,
It wasn't passed.
it didn't.
Okay, so now fortunately, so one of the opportunities that we can take advantage of is make sure that we save our money with the unit trusts. And then number two, you can still do your business online. Okay, get into the digital space and do your business online. There's a world of opportunities there. There are so many customers that you can reach. Luckily, we are surviving the tax this year. I don't know what is going to happen next year, but I'm sure we can take advantage of this year to make sure that we grow our businesses, especially for the people who are just starting. Now, Denis, you talked about the Kenyan economy, and it seems to be a bigger market. And I'll also I'll ask you, Andrew, because you do investment in stocks. Kenya seems to be the bigger market in the economy. Fine, you say their tax regime is more rigid than ours, but then we are looking for opportunities for the year 2023, 2024. Would you advise Ugandans to invest in the Kenyan market? Andrew.
Well, when Ugandans investing there, for now, Kenya has a debt problem.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why. But you can invest in their companies because they have very strong, innovative companies. Yeah. And like he explained, they have a bigger market, they have bigger exports. But in their debt market, I wouldn't advise. Yeah.
Okay.
Our debt market is more solid than theirs as we speak. They have a lot of Chinese loans.
Okay, that is a detail. I am thinking about us investing, for example, exporting our food to Kenya, like we've done our milk, our maize, inviting Kenyans to come to Uganda for education. Those, because I'm looking for things that we can do not at a high level. I'm not talking about their bonds. I'm looking at things that people can kusubula in Kenya. Is it better for us to explore the Kenyan market so that we can expand or maybe enhance the business we're doing here in Uganda, according to you?
Okay, on that, well, already we're exporting. As at April, we had a trade surplus with Kenya.
Okay.
And we know that Kenya had put some tariff barriers on the Ugandan maize. They were saying it had a lot of toxins. And also they had somehow banned our eggs, milk from Lato milk. So we are exporting there already. It's them who put barriers because probably they feel our products are cheap and they outcompete some of their companies. Yeah, but already that is happening and we have a trade surplus now with Kenya.
Okay.
We export a lot of agriculture and indeed Kenya is the biggest investor here. The equity banks and all, they do a lot of investing here, but we supply them food because we are the food basket and we have lower costs of production. Yeah, so that is happening. That is happening and they are fantastic neighbors. We hope they remove the barriers so we can trade more.
Okay.
So that people have access to cheaper food.
Yes.
Yeah.
Food is an important factor in our region, and Uganda is a food basket. Well, we are still on Strictly Business. We have about 25 minutes before we come to the end of the show. We'll have a session where we can respond to your questions. So please do send them in. Send us your questions on our Twitter Spaces page. Or you can also send us your questions on YouTube. Andrew and Denis will be able to respond to them. We are still exploring the opportunities for you and I in the budget that has just been passed. So maybe it's the perfect time for me to ask you this question. Yes, we are honoring fathers today. And generally, Denis and Andrew, do you think this budget is fatherly? And how would you advise the head of the home to run their affairs this year?
Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting. You know, there's an issue which came out in this budget, especially on the VAT side. The Pampers.
Yes.
have previously been, is it exempt or zero rated from tax? But unfortunately, I don't know how it slipped through the cracks, that it's been moved to the category of those items where VAT should be paid.
Okay.
Probably the reason why it slipped through the crack, the proposed tax changes, the initial proposed tax changes were so many, the bad proposals were so many that a lot of attention was focused on those. And then the minor ones like diapers missed the scrutiny. So, I mean, applying VAT on diapers is, it increases the cost of those items. And as a head of a family, it means you're spending a little more on those items. The fortunate thing is that when you look at the excise duty regime, the changes which have come through have not been that significant, because excise duty, they call it the same tax. So it's a tax to punish your habits. They are goods of ostentation, luxury. So if you're a smoker, if you're drinking beer, and the concern which has always been raised in the past is that if someone has a habit, even if you raise taxes, the habit will not go away. So if someone, I will not change my drinking habits or my eating habits. So if you increase taxes on beer, indirectly you're also impacting the man's expenditure on the home. So if a guy has been buying 2 liters of milk, he will adjust buy 1.5 so that he keeps his beers. But on the excise duty front, that wasn't the case. Perhaps, it's not come through, but going forward, these are some of the things that government should consider. When you go to countries like UK or US, there are credits for parents. If you're a parent and you're spending money on kids or elderly, you either get a rebate or you get a tax credit, you get a refund of sorts. I feel the pay as you earn of 40% for someone who is earning over 10 million is excessive. So I think going forward, for all those who are in the Fathers and Mothers Club, who are family and homely, those are some of the incentives we need to fight for, especially the church, so that we encourage people to get into these things and make family an attractive issue, even from a tax front.
Okay, thank you, Denis. Andrew, how fatherly is this budget?
First of all, fathers are largely breadwinners in this nation.
Yes.
And these issues of diapers probably affects 10% of the fathers in the country. I would say the PDM has allocated 1 trillion. That's 100 million to each parish.
Okay.
So the fathers should take advantage of that credit that will be available at their parishes if it comes. Obviously, the PDM is a successor to ENIOGA and the Operation Wealth Creation, and they should watch out that it's not centered on money alone. They should work on the mindset change, because the PDM as a program has 7 pointers.
Okay.
And the issue has been there is focus on access to money.
Yes.
Not on mindset change and what. But the fathers have that 100 million that they can access at each parish to work on their businesses and look after their families.
Okay. So there you have it. 2 things stand out for fathers who are listening in right now. Yes, the budget is a little bit tight. You will be spending more money to make sure that your babies are comfortable. I personally will be spending more money to buy diapers for my 95-year-old grandfather. But that is what it is. I may have to be very creative with the way I use my money. But now also, the money seems to be with the parish development model. That is where I see the money is. So that invites all of us to be involved locally in the places where we stay to make sure that we can utilize these resources. Well, it is strictly business, and this is our first show. We want to thank you so much for staying with us. And we are at the CNA rooftop in Zambia, enjoying the beautiful view of Kampala city. And we will be having these business these business conversations once a month. I would now like to ask Andrew and Dennis to give us their parting shots before we come to the end of the show. Andrew?
Well, my parting shot is that we have a budget deficit.
Okay.
As a nation, we don't live within our means. So as citizens, we should probably try to live within our means to do better than government. The positive is that they say we are going to grow at 6.5 to 7% for the next 5 years.
Okay.
Courtesy of the oil sector. So we should look out for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Dennis, your parting shot.
The government plays a very significant role in shaping the development agenda. And it's a key catalyst regarding how the economy really grows. Now I have a challenge, and I believe the government can do better. I think we need to focus on a few things, run them for maybe 2-3 years before we jump on something else. But at this point in time, there seems to be so many competing priorities, which is a bit concerning. And I mean, when you go to countries like Kenya or Tanzania, you can actually feel it that on the infrastructure side, they are way ahead of us. And I mean, Kenya has opened up. When you look at Nairobi, the Chitengeras, a lot of the environs of Nairobi have been opened up, or even Tanzania. A lot of the Chigambonis, those places have been opened up because of infrastructure which has been worked on. But when you look at Uganda, Kampala and the greater metropolitan areas, they've not been fully opened up and harnessed the opportunities, the business opportunities harnessed, because the government has not maybe focused a lot more on the infrastructure in the urban areas. And also it has so many competing priorities, the parish development model, this and that. So I wish they could focus on 1 or 2 things for 2 or 3 years, you accomplish that, and then jump onto something else.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dennis. We have come to the end of our very first show of Strictly Business. We want to thank you so much for spending your time with us. I've been talking to Andrew Muhimbisa and Denis Kakembo, who have been able to share with us the opportunities in the 2023-2024 budget that has just been read. I wish you a great year. I hope you're able to do your businesses well and be able to take care of your expenses. My name is Belinda Namutebi from Strictly Business, and it is good night for now.